Oh, hello. Good morning. It's going to be a very good day. I can already tell. First of all, we started off by picking these up. These are little cards that I'm going to use little flyers to promote Flavors on Main at the Copper State Beer Festival this weekend. So I'm very excited about that. Picked up a whole bunch of them, big box. And so we're going to be passing those out at Copper State. And we're also going to be dropping them off at a bunch of the businesses that are participating in the event. So that's going on. It's been quite a hectic few days. My daughter got sick. She got the flu. Luckily, it did not make its way through the rest of the household. So we've had less than optimal sleep the last few days. But she's coming out of it. She's feeling a lot better. Temperature is gone. The fever's gone, and everybody's doing fine. Hopefully, she gets some sleep tonight. We were hoping she would get some sleep last night, but she did not. But that's, the joys of parenthood. The good thing is that her spirits have been really good. She's such a funny little kid, and she's always just happy. So that's what's going on. I have about an hour and 20 minutes before I have a meeting with the Shop Beer Company down in Tempe. So I'm going to kind of head that way, probably stop at a coffee shop and get a few things done, and then have a meeting with them about a potential series of events that are going to go on this year. Launched my blog today. That's very exciting. I'll put the link down in the description. Just lots of exciting things. So one thing I realized recently was that while I've done, I think, 5 episodes of this vlog now, I have yet to really introduce what Exceptional Vibe is or who I am. So I want to take this opportunity. Actually, my first blog post that I talked about a little earlier is about that exactly, about what Exceptional Vibe is and what I'm trying to accomplish by putting on my own events. So a little background on me. Spent the last 15 years or so working in marketing and event production. Spent the last 3 years, as of October of last year, working for a local publication here in Phoenix and launching all of their events. And I think doing a pretty darn good job of it. So through all that, I built up a really great network of local businesses, breweries, restaurants, chefs, cocktail bars, etc. And I thought it was time for me to focus on what I'm passionate about, which is specifically putting on local events that are focused on community, local businesses, etc. And I talk about this in my blog post, but essentially, there's a lot of large events here in Arizona that, bring in 2,000 plus, 2,000 to 6,000 attendees. And they're great events. There's definitely a place for those. But the problem with those big events is that there's so many vendors and so many attendees that it's really hard for vendors and attendees to really connect. Attendees are running from, one vendor to another. Vendors are just focused on getting their, product or samples or whatever out as fast as possible. And it also limits the kinds of vendors that participate in the event because, take a food festival, for example. The restaurant that participates has to be able to handle the production of, the amount of samples for however many attendees are going to that festival. So when the event is too big, it limits, the smaller businesses from being able to participate, and it also doesn't create a scenario where the goal of that participation is accomplished if the restaurants are just, kind of lost in the fray, or the vendors are just lost in the fray of so many vendors and so many people. And so what I've found is that there's this sweet spot of like 500 to 1,000 attendees that allows the vendors to really connect with the attendees and allows the attendees to feel connected to the vendors. And that creates the sorts of connections that then lead to, more meaningful outcomes. So, customers for the vendors, new favorites or places to try for the attendees. And that sweet spot is what I'm sort of aiming for in everything that I'm doing and the events that I'm putting on. Obviously, I want to make money. Obviously, I want to build a business, but at the same time, my big motivation is to highlight local businesses and support the communities, in those different industries, whether that's beer, whether that's food, whether that's, any of those things. So that's really what I'm trying to do here is create the kinds of events that bolster the communities. And the name Exceptional Vibe comes from that feeling that you get when you're at an event and you kind of stand back and think, man, this event has an exceptional vibe. That's what I'm looking to recreate in all of my events. And that's the kind of impact that I'm trying to make, not just for the customers, not just for the attendees of the events, but also the vendors. I see vendors, attendees, and sponsors all as my customers, right? So I have 3 categories of customers. I have the attendees that come to my event and experience the event. So obviously I want to give them that extraordinary experience. I have my vendors who I also want to take really good care of and make sure they're getting something out of the event. And then I have sponsors as well, who I want to take care of as well and make sure that they're getting the sort of spotlight that they deserve. So that's what I'm doing. That's what Exceptional Vibe is. And I hope this giant rant means something to you. So I have a little less than an hour before my next meeting. So I'm going to grab a cup of coffee and then I'm going to head over there to the shop. Thanks for listening. See you in a little bit. Just got done with my meeting with the shop. We were talking about starting a monthly running event out of their brewery. They seem very open to that, so now we just have to figure out when we're going to do it and when we want to start it. I'm also partnering with a local running store called Soul Sports to do this event. So it seems like everybody is down. So now we just have to figure out some of the details, like when we want to do it. Just another thing on the calendar. But it was a good meeting, the good people over at the shop, and we're gonna do some fun stuff together. So I'm gonna head home, get some work done, maybe get up to some more shenanigans a little later. This weekend is the Copper State Beer Festival, so next week's episode will probably cover that. So keep an eye out for that. It's gonna be a lot of fun because a bunch of breweries, a bunch of local breweries all hanging out, and I'll be there with my first booth, my first Exceptional Vibe booth out in the wild. So I'm very excited about it. So more about that later. So I thought the day was over, but I knew I was gonna have something else that I wanted to do. And turns out that I'd forgotten completely that I'm planning on doing a home brew tomorrow. So I need to go buy my ingredients. So I'm gonna head to the homebrew store, which if you didn't homebrew, you probably didn't know that there were stores for that kind of thing. And I'm gonna buy all my ingredients for tomorrow's little brew day. So yay. So this beer that I'm brewing tomorrow, it's a Belgian Abbey Ale. It's probably going to come out relatively high alcohol content, maybe like somewhere around 7 or 8, because I'm using tons of grain. But the story behind this particular beer is this was the first beer I ever brewed when I first got into home brewing. I brewed it, learned a ton, fermented it, went through the whole process. And back then I was still bottling my beer, as opposed to now where I keg it, put it in a keg and just pour it out of a kegerator. But that back then I used to bottle. What that means is once the beer is done fermenting, I would put it into bottles with a little bit of sugar in each bottle so that the yeast can continue fermenting a little bit and produce the carbon dioxide within the bottle and carbonate the beer. But what happened for that first beer is I was using a bunch of used equipment that people had given me or that I'd bought. And one of the things that was given to me was a plastic bottling bucket. It's a bucket with a little spout at the bottom, and I put the beer into the bucket, and then I was gonna put the bucket onto a countertop and then use gravity to basically run a hose from the spout to the bottles. Well, this bottling bucket was old and had, I think, sat in somebody's garage for a little while, and in the heat of Arizona, plastic tends to get brittle when it sits in the heat. And so what happened is after I put 5 gallons of this beer into the bucket for my first beer that I ever brewed, put it in the bucket, and I go to lift it onto the counter, and the bottom of the bucket just burst and spilled my beer all over my driveway, and I never got to drink it. And I had brewed it. I started brewing right before my daughter was born, so I had brewed it with the intention of being able to drink it once my daughter was born as like a celebration of her birth. Well, I never got to drink it. And so now after 2 years, a little more than 2 years, I'm gonna rebrew the same beer with all the things I've learned since then. I simplified the recipe a whole bunch. My system is a lot better. I understand it better. I understand how to do this better. And so I anticipate that this will be a pretty good beer simply because of the knowledge that I've gained over the last 2 years. And I'm very excited that I'll finally be able to actually drink the beer that I initially brewed for my daughter's birthday. And now, I'll have it. And I hope it goes well. So we're gonna brew that tomorrow. So that's what I'm doing here. That's the story behind this beer. I figured I'd share it with you. But yeah, that's the end of the day, really. I mean, it's only 3 o'clock, but the rest of the day is probably gonna be spent hanging out with my family and getting ready for tomorrow's brew day. And so thanks for following along, and we'll see you in the next video.